Hello, and welcome to the webinar on evaluating organic inputs for improving soil health in organic blueberry systems. I'm Alice Formiga of eOrganic, and this webinar will last around 45 minutes, and then we'll have 30 minutes for questions. Today, I'd like to welcome our presenter, Shikha Singh. She was, until very recently, until last week, a postdoctoral scholar at the Hermiston Agricultural Research and Extension Center in Eastern Oregon. She just started a new position as assistant professor at the Washington State University Dryland Research Station. She was working on investigating various organic soil amendments in northern highbush blueberry systems and evaluating their effects on soil health. So she'll be sharing that research with us today. So thank you for joining us, Shikha, today. And I'm going to turn off my video and pass things on to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Alice, for a nice introduction. And thank you all for coming to my presentation today. And it's very nice to see so many people from all around the country to be so that they're here and attending my talk. That's really nice. And so I will just give today the topic of my presentation is evaluating various organic inputs for improving the health of our soils in organic blueberry systems. So basically, this work was conducted in Eastern Oregon. This was part of my postdoctoral research. I was a postdoc at Oregon State University from January 2021 to March 2023. And during this time, this is the research I did. And thank you again for being here today. And now I'll start with the talk. So I want to talk about the blueberry production in the Pacific Northwest. So global blueberry production and consumption, they both have been considerably increased since the early 90s. In 2020, North America, which including the US, Canada, and Mexico, they contributed around 58% of the global blueberry production, followed by Peru, Poland, and Spain. If we just talk about North America, the Pacific Northwestern states, that includes Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia, they contributed approximately 50% of the total blueberry production last year. Certified organic blueberry production, as of now, is the fastest growing sector in blueberry market, and it's very interesting to see that just Oregon and Washington, they contribute over half of the US production. Just looking at the economics, it values around $200 million. It valued around $200 million in 2017. And the US demand for organic blueberry represents a significant revenue source for small fruit producers in the Pacific Northwestern states. Typically blueberries are adapted to very well-drained soils that have acidic pH that ranges from 4.5 to 5.5. And the reason why these plants grow best in this pH range is because the blueberry plants, they take up ammonium forms of nitrogen. And if the pH goes above 5.5, the ammonium form gets converted into nitrate forms of nitrogen, which will not be of any use to these plants. And if they get converted into nitrate forms, that also increases the risk of nitrate leaching. These plants also require soils with very high organic matter content, which is why typically growers in this region apply sawdust or wood chips to soils before planting blueberries. The climate in Pacific Northwestern states is separated by Cascades, and west of the Cascades mostly has milder seasonal temperatures and higher has warmer summers, cooler winters, and less precipitation. Eastern region has great potential for growing organic blueberries. These blueberry plants, if you remember, we experienced serious heat waves in the last 2 years in this region. So why do we care at all about weather patterns and heat waves? Well, here is why. Um, you can see in the figure on the left that from 1950, uh, the temperatures have been increasing, um, and by the end of this century, we are going to see at least an increase of 1 degree Celsius in the global temperatures, and that is if we are trying to reduce all our greenhouse gas emissions. If we do not do anything right now, it's going to increase by 4 degrees Celsius by the end of the century. And all of these will have huge implications on our production systems. These are surely going to reduce our productivity, the food productivity, which will adversely affect our food security for the growing population. And the change in the climate conditions will also change the plant growth cycles and their physiology. And because of that, our systems will not be resilient and sustainable for future generations. And typically, it is of typically, if you see that agriculture and forestry, they account for at least 24% of the greenhouse gas emissions in the past decade. Therefore, it is of utmost importance to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from the soil and try to sequester more carbon in the soils. This will help us in reducing um, the the problems related with changes in weather patterns, and it will also help sequestering more and more carbon in the soils and reducing their emissions is also going to improve soil properties, such as increasing carbon can help in increasing soil aggregation, and increased soil carbon can also help in retaining more nutrients and more water in the soils and reduce compaction um, of the soils and also help microbial activity and in many, many more ways. And healthy soils can also be profitable to farmers as they would reduce, um, in the long term, they would reduce their dependency on external chemical inputs and provide better yields. So, all of these would help in mitigating the changing climate conditions and promoting sustainability in the future. So one such practice is doing organic agriculture to sequester more carbon and improving the health of soils. Because organic systems they involve building soil building practices such as crop rotations, intercropping, symbiotic associations, cover crops, organic inputs, minimum to no tillage. All these practices are central to organic systems. Um, they promote sustainability over a long time, and they also help in encouraging soil fauna. They improve soil formation and structure. They create more stable systems, and in turn, nutrient and energy cycling is increased, and the soils become more able to retain more water and more nutrients, and thus compensating for the non-use of mineral fertilizers. And in many agricultural areas, pollution of groundwater courses with synthetic fertilizers and pesticides is a major problem. As the use of these is prohibited in organic agriculture, they are replaced by organic fertilizers, that is, compost, animal manure, green manure, etc. And of these, through the use of these organic inputs, they help in increasing the biodiversity of soils and enhance the soil structure and water infiltration. And another good another reason why organic systems are better is the organic agriculture reduces the use of non-renewable energy by decreasing agrochemical needs. Um, Basically, these agrochemicals they require high quantities of fossil fuel to be produced, and organic agriculture contributes to mitigating the greenhouse gas effect and global warming through its ability to sequester more carbon in the soil. Many management practices used in our organic agriculture, like minimum tillage, returning crops residues to the soil again, and the use of cover crops and rotations, and the greater integration of crops like legumes that fix nitrogen into the soil naturally. They increase the return of carbon. All these practices, they help in increasing the return of carbon to the soil, raising its productivity and favoring carbon storage. The impact of organic agriculture on natural resources favors interactions with agro ecosystem that are vital for both agricultural production and nature conservation. So, as I mentioned before, there has been a growing demand for organic blueberries, which has led to an increase in the area under certified organic production in the US. Even though the Pacific Northwestern states contribute approximately half of the national blueberry production, but organic production, it still needs to be it's still a little low, which has the potential of increasing. Soils in this area are sandy in texture and have very low organic matter content. We know that blueberries are adapted to acidic soil with a high amount of soil organic carbon. Therefore, as these soils have low soil organic carbon, growers spread wood chips or compost before planting as organic inputs. Um, the microbes, so these organic inputs, to they help increase the microbial activity in the soils, and the microbes, they enhance the nutrient availability to these plants by decomposing the soil organic matter into plant usable forms of nutrients. So also these microbes also secrete sticky substances that help in soil aggregation. Here in this study, we are trying to evaluate locally available organic materials which otherwise would be burned as waste or disposed of as waste. Um, so we're just trying to use materials that would either be wasted later on, or just disposed of. So this would help in increasing the resource use efficiency and reduce costs, and also decrease environmental hazards, because since we are trying to evaluate locally available organic inputs, this would definitely reduce costs to the growers. And in addition to the different amendments, we are also trying to evaluate placement techniques. If we would incorporate these amendments into the soil, or just surface apply them in a band, spread them in a band, and this will help the growers to results from this will help the growers to plan field activities best suited for organic blueberries. So first amendment that we consider is biochar. So what is biochar? It is basically the solid material obtained from the thermochemical conversion of biomass in an oxygen limited environment. Um, if you see in this figure, there are like several kinds of feedstocks that can be used to prepare biochar, such as wood chips, plant materials, manure, and many other agricultural wastes and products that can be used. That typically they are all used in a biofuel industry. So basically, biochar is a byproduct of a biofuel industry. Um, they are usually they when these feedstocks are burned in a limited no to low oxygen environment at high temperatures, uh, biochar is produced, biofuel is also produced, and it also releases some gases. So biochar as a soil amendment has many advantages. It is a very rich source of carbon to the soils, and as I said, sequestering more and more carbon will actually help the soils become healthy in the future. After the thermal conversion of organic feedstocks, um, the residue that is produced, the biochar and the carbon in the biochar, it becomes more resistant to microbial decomposition. It is a very stable product. It can stay in the soil for decades to millennia. That has been reported in the previous studies. Um, it actually enables long-term carbon sequestration and storage. Um, as it is like it is highly it's very stable to microbial decomposition. That's why. Biochar also imparts several positive effects on soil, including regulating pH, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, removing pollutants, and providing mineral nutrients to the soil. Um, it also biochar addition also promotes soil aggregate formation because typically biochar in its nature is a little hydrophobic. Uh, that actually enhances the the possibility or the actually enhances the resistance of soil aggregates to break. Therefore it actually promotes more aggregation. It can also increase soil moisture content um, in it and generally biochar increases soil nutrient retention by two ways. First, it releases nutrients to the soil, and second, by reducing nutrient leaching from the soils. The absorption is the biochar is able to absorb the nutrients on the surface that helps in preventing the leaching in the soil. So microbial activity in soil is also enhanced by biochar application as biochar helps in sequestering more and more carbon. It has the potential to negate the effects of changing weather patterns. Another potential organic amendment that I would like to talk about is grape pomace. East this region is very famous for its wines, and grape pomace is actually a byproduct of wine production. As you can see in this figure, when grapes are crushed for wine production, whatever is left behind is the pomace. And since the wine industry is big in this area, therefore availability of grape pomace in this region is also high. It would be cheaper for growers to get grape pomace easily, and it inherently is very acidic in nature, um, and has high nutrient content. Therefore, it has the potential of being used as a compost material for blueberries. And another option is to co-compost biochar and grape pomace together. This could potentially be a good combination of easily decomposable compost material and stable biochar, which is difficult to decompose, so that we have a good combination of easily decomposable carbon and stable carbon that can stay in the soil for a longer time, as well as the easily decomposable fraction is available readily for the microbes to use up. As you see in this figure, organic wastes and biochar are mixed together and co-composted together. When applied to soils, these are reported to improve soil fertility, soil aeration, and improve the carbon to nitrogen ratio. They also help in reducing soil compaction, nutrient loss, and greenhouse gas emissions. This co-composted biochar and grape pomace could be a good alternative to use as an organic amendment for blueberry production. It has been reported to increase plant available nutrient and soil moisture as well. So, based on that, we developed three main objectives. We need to see how different organic amendments and their placement techniques affect soil biofertility, colonization of mycorrhizal fungi. So, blueberries have a special kind of mycorrhizal fungi. It's called ericoid mycorrhizal fungi, which I'll be talking about in the upcoming slides, and other beneficial microbes. To determine the role of locally available organic materials on overall soil health, including physical and chemical health. So, for this, we established a trial at the Hermiston Ag Research and Extension Center. Um, it's a part of the Oregon State University's research stations. And in this, we are evaluating four organic amendments in this trial, as you can see in the figure. The first one on the left is biochar. The the figure on top right is biochar plus grape pomace co-composted. The third figure C is wood chips, which is a grower standard. Um, as I mentioned before in my previous slides, that growers in this region apply wood chips typically as an organic input before planting blueberries. And this is a grower standard. And the fourth one is grape pomace compost alone. And we actually did two placement methods, one incorporated to a depth of 0.2 meters or banded on the soil surface. And the cultivar we used in this was Draper. We are also evaluating the effects of those treatments on plant growth and food production as part of a grant funded by the USDA NIFA Organic Transitions Program. So we collected soil samples on spring and fall of 2022. So this trial was established in 2021 May, and that time we collected some baseline samples during that time, and this was the first year after the berries were planted. First year of sample collection that we did to see the effects of different inputs on different parameters. We collected data on physical analysis like infiltration. So we used a Saturo infiltrometer to measure infiltration rates in these soils. Uh, we measured the bulk density and water holding capacity. For the water holding capacity, we used a meter group high prop instrument. And the chemical analyses, we did all macro and micronutrient analyses, soil pH, and electrical conductivity. Microbial analysis was also done, in which we looked at the bacterial and fungal communities using next-gen sequencing, and we also looked at the ericoid mycorrhizal fungi colonization using microscopic evaluation. Basically, we picked the roots, we stained them, and then we put them on a slide and counted them under the microscope. We also looked at some plant attribute data, which I will be showing in the upcoming slides. So starting with the soil organic matter, because I have talked a lot about carbon in the previous slides, so I think this is one of the most important aspects of soil health. Uh, it helps. So soil organic matter is really important because it helps in retaining more water and nutrients in the soil. And we measured the soil organic matter using the dry combustion method. Um, these were all analyzed at the soil test labs in Moses Lake. So if you look at this figure in the graph, the red dashed line is the baseline soil organic matter when we established the trial in May 2021. Um, then after almost 3.5 months in fall, we collected some soil samples in late August 2021, and we started to see some trends. We observed the highest soil organic matter in compost incorporated treatment, while lowest in compost ban treatment. The other treatments did not show any conclusive differences. Then we collected another set of soil samples in spring of 2022. That is the set of bars in the middle. And in that, again, we found the compost incorporated treatment showed the highest soil organic matter, while others did not show any conclusive differences. One thing to notice here is that from fall last year, fall 2021 to spring 2022, all the treatments started to show higher soil organic matter comparatively. This indicates that all these treatments accumulated some soil organic matter over winters, probably because of less microbial activity in due to the cold weather, and they were not able to use up or decompose any of the organic matter compost added. Um, Again, in 2022 August, we collected one set of samples. That is the third set of bars that you see on the screen, says fall 2022. We looked at the soil organic matter after almost 15 months after application of these amendments. And similar to the first two sampling events, the soil organic matter was significantly higher in incorporated compost. This kind of makes sense because incorporation of compost increases the contact surface of the soil, compost, and microbes. Also, compost is more easily decomposable due to it's due to having more labile forms of carbon, due to which the effect of compost was faster to show. Since it is more easily decomposable, so the effects of compost was more faster to show. One more thing to look at in this figure is that we did not see any difference in biochar applied in bands and or incorporated. So as I mentioned before, biochar is relatively stable form of carbon and it can stay in soils for a very long period of time. It decomposes slowly, and the effects of biochar they take longer to show up. But based on my understanding in these years working in soils, I think that once they start to show up, they would they would turn out to be one of the best treatments. We don't know yet, but that's what I think. Here are the results of for nitrogen. This was also measured using the dry combustion method. For blueberries, the ammonium form of nitrogen is more important because they grow in acidic soil. But for our study, we did not see any significant differences in ammonium nitrogen, which I think could be due to the fact that we were applying acidified irrigation to lower the soil pH and maintain the pH between 4.5 to 5.5. And due to this pH range, probably most of the N application we did, the organic fertilizer that we added, stayed in the ammonium form and did not go through the conversion to nitrates. Um, Total nitrogen also followed a similar trend as soil organic matter, with incorporated compost treatment showing highest total nitrogen availability in both fall of 2021 and 2022. Compost incorporated had higher total N availability than compost applied in band. No significant differences did we see in biochar and compost applied in band or incorporated in both. So if you see the figure on the left, the fall of 2021, the compost incorporated treatment, the sixth bar from the left showed the highest total nitrogen. Similarly, in the fall of 2022, the figure on the right, you see the compost incorporated treatment had the highest total nitrogen. And in general, we saw that the treatments applied in incorporated showed better results than the ones applied in band. Um, in addition to those nutrients, we also looked at the available phosphorus, which was measured using the Olson extraction method. And again, incorporated compost treatment showed the highest available phosphorus. The lowest available phosphorus was observed in biochar applied in band and wood chips uh, in the fall of 2021. The figure on the left shows fall 2021, and the lowest in this one again we saw that the compost incorporated treatment showed the highest available phosphorus. Similarly, in fall of 2022, we did not see any significant differences in all the treatments except that compost incorporated showed the highest available phosphorus. Uh, we also did statistical analysis to look at if there is any change in available phosphorus over time in all these treatments. Um, and if you look closely at all the treatments and compare them with, like, if you see the changes in all the treatments in available phosphorus in fall of 2022 and compare them to fall of 2021, you can see all these treatments had higher available phosphorus in 2022. So that is what I also saw in the statistical analysis, that over time the available phosphorus availability increased in fall 2022 for all the treatments as compared to fall of 2021. So this is the active carbon. This is a labile fraction of soil organic carbon, and it is one of the most popular soil health indicator. It responds very fast. It responds very fast to changes in practices. So this is used as an early indicator of soil health. Um, it is response. Usually this is used, as I mentioned, as an early indicator of soil health, because carbon sequestration is a slow process and takes some time to show up in the soil. So therefore, instead of looking at total soil organic carbon, we look at the active carbon to see if there is any changes. So here in fall of 2021, in the figure on the left, we see that the compost incorporated, biochar plus compost incorporated treatments showed higher active carbon. We did not see any significant differences in biochar alone treatments, but for biochar plus compost and compost treatments, we see higher active carbon. Again, in fall of 2022, um, we start to see more conclusive trends. Uh, we see again that the compost incorporated treatment showed the highest active carbon. Wood chips this time also showed um, higher active carbon than other treatments applied in bands, which kind of makes sense because wood chips were also mixed in the soil, allowing more soil wood chips and microbial contact. So then we looked at some soil enzyme activity. So beta glucosidase activity, it's also sensitive to soil management and has been proposed as a soil health indicator because it provides an early indication of changes in soil organic matter status. So in this result is from fall of 2022. Um, this was the first time we started collecting data on enzyme activity, and this analysis was done at Oregon State University's Soil Health Lab. The highest enzyme activity was observed in biochar plus compost, both incorporated and applied in bands treatment. Also in the wood chips. So if you see the figure here, the highest activities are being shown in all the 5 bars on the right. We did see higher activity of enzyme activity in all of these, except for biochar alone treatments, the 2 bars on the left. So the lowest, since this is slightly over a year after application, so we are not really sure what is driving these enzyme activity, and we are collecting one more set of soil sample to see more conclusive trends in enzyme activity. This data was collected just slightly over a year after application, so I think it will take to equilibrate one more set of soil sample is needed. So that's what we are collecting this fall again. We also looked at the microbial activity by respiration. Uh, this is an important indicator of soil health as microbes try to decompose the organic inputs and convert them into plant usable nutrients. We see the highest microbial respiration in the compost incorporated treatment. If you see the set of bars on the left are labeled as fall 2021, the highest microbial respiration was in compost incorporated treatment, but we did not see any changes in the other, like any differences in the other treatments. So this result is actually in agreement with all the other parameters um, that we have saw in the previous slides. In again now in fall of 2022, if you look at the set of bars on the right labeled as fall 2022, we see an increase in activity in microbial respiration in biochar plus compost applied as band and incorporated, in addition to the compost incorporated treatments. So the 3 bars here, biochar plus compost band, biochar plus compost incorporated, and compost incorporated, only these started to see, we started to see an increase in microbial respiration. Again, the microbial respiration was still the highest in compost incorporated treatment. But if you look very closely, the microbial respiration in compost incorporated treatment started to decline after 1 year. So, since compost is easily decomposable, so I think the effect of compost, uh, as much as we are seeing right now, it's showing to be the best right now. But since it is easily being used up, I think the effects of compost, we will start to see these effects to lower down, as we are seeing here in microbial respiration. So I think that compost incorporated uh, treatment here, if you compare both fall 2021 and fall 2022, there's a decrease in microbial respiration in the compost incorporate treatment. So the point I'm trying to make here is that since this is easily decomposable form of carbon, the effect of this may reduce in the longer term. And as I said, like biochar, since it takes slower to show up in the soils, it may increase in the longer term. So here we looked at the ericoid mycorrhizal fungi colonization. So this data was also collected in fall of 2022. Blueberries are actually very unique in that, as they rely on symbiotic association uh, on EMF, ericoid mycorrhizal fungi to survive. So these fungi, they colonize in the root hairs of blueberries and can increase nutrient uptake in blueberries. These were measured, as I said, by microscopic counting. Um, but if you say, since it was just like over a year after these application, we did not see any differences in the ericoid mycorrhizal fungi colonization. So you can see that this all these bars are accompanied by same letter A, which means that statistically there is no significant differences in the fungal colonization in all these treatments. So I think this year again we are going to collect this data to see if there are any trends. So we also looked at the bacterial and fungal communities. So after doing the sequencing analysis, we looked at the diversity indices. So since this was just over a year of the experiment, so we did not see any differences in the microbial diversity for both bacterial and fungal communities. We looked at the richness and evenness. So richness is basically, it is the total number of different kinds of species in the soil, and evenness is how close in numbers each species is in an environment. So we did not see any differences. Part of it could be that because all of these are organic inputs and they all are beneficial to the soil and the microbes. So maybe that's the reason we are not seeing any differences in the first year of after a year of data, like after a year of the inputs were applied to the soil. But this year again, we are collecting one more set of soil samples to do the sequencing analysis to see if there are any changes. Last year, we did see some changes in the microbial biomass that was done using chloroform fumigation in the lab. We did see some changes, but since it was just after a year of data, like just after a year of these experiment, we did not see any statistical differences. So I think since this is the second year after the inputs have been applied, so I think this year data will really give us more conclusive trend. We looked at the infiltration rates from these treatments, but again, we did not see any differences among the treatments. And as these soils are sandy, it will take some it will take some time for these treatments to show significant differences in infiltration rates. We looked at the water holding capacity. So this is a very interesting result because even though uh, if you see the all this data was also collected in fall of 2022. This one, when I was running the statistics, the p-value was very close to being significant. So if you see, the compost incorporated treatment had the highest water holding capacity, and the lowest if you compare the treatments in incorporated and in banned. So typically the uh, banned treatments showed lower water holding capacity as compared to the incorporated treatment. For example, if you see the two bars below, the biochar incorporated and the biochar banned, so the water holding capacity in biochar banned is lower than the one in incorporated. For the next treatment, like biochar plus compost banned and biochar plus compost incorporated, if you look at these two together, again, the one in banned is lower than the one incorporated. Similarly, in compost incorporated and compost applied in band, we saw the compost applied in band had lower water holding capacity than compost incorporated. So this is a very interesting result because the p-value was very close to being significant statistically, but it did not. So this is what this analysis we are surely going to repeat this year, just to see what if we are going to see a significant difference in between the treatments this year. We could have seen something, but it was very close. The significant p-value was very close to being significant. So this year, fingers crossed. We looked at the plant attributes, we looked at the fruit set in these berries, and that was also taken in spring of 2022. This was the first year these plants were harvested, and we did not see any differences in the fruit set, uh, as well as not even in the plant height of in all these treatments. Again, I think that this was just the after like right after less than 1 year after the treatments were applied. So I think at least one more year of data is needed to see more conclusive trends in the plant attributes as well. Again, we did not see any differences in the yield of blueberries in the first year. We harvested them for the first time in 2022, and we did not see any significant differences. And that was just like after a year of treatment application in the soils. So since we just collected data, most of the data in fall of 2022, right after a year of treatment application, the preliminary conclusions from this study that we can derive is that compost incorporated treatment showed best results in most parameters. And if we compare the treatments that were incorporated as and the ones applied in band, so the treatments that were incorporated showed better nutrient availability, better enzyme activity, and active carbon fractions, as well as better water holding capacity than their counterparts applied in band. And as biochar is known to increase carbon sequestration and improve soil health, we believe that more data, and it's more stable form of carbon, and it will take some time to show its effects in soils. So we believe that more data needs to be collected to assess the impacts of these organic inputs on soil health indicators. And we plan to collect more data from this year as well. So just the broader implication, um, we from results from this study will help us in building a, an overall holistic understanding of the organic blueberry production system, by striking a balance in growth profitability, soil health, and environmental sustainability. Uh, it is essential because any adverse effect on nutrient availability or yield or fruit quality could lead to significant economic losses. And since we are using locally available organic amendments, this will increase resource use efficiency, which will not only be crucial for short and long term sustainability of these systems, but also help in fostering grower profitability. Um, in my opinion, any opportunity to improve nutrient availability, increasing soil carbon, and enhancing fruit quality, um, and potentially, like, they can all potentially maximize economic and environmental benefits for growers. And identifying the best organic amendments will also help in reducing the growers' dependence on external chemical inputs in the longer term once we get more data. So, with that, I would like to thank the Horticulture Lab, Integrative Horticulture Lab at Hermiston Agri Research and Extension Center, USDA ARS Corvallis, and USDA NIFA Organic Transitions Program for funding this research. We got part of the funding from Agriculture Research Foundation and Washington Blueberry Commission. So thank you. And with that, I will take any questions that you may have. Thank you for coming to my talk and with all your and sitting there for with patience.
Thank you, Shika. That was really interesting, and I'm looking forward to an update on all of this. If maybe you could send us one, and we can post that along with the webinar as the new data comes in this year. So we have plenty of time now for question and answers, and I know we've been getting some questions in the Q&A box. Did you apply all of the treatments like compost and biochar once and then measure the soil organic matter in the spring or the fall, spring, and then fall? Is that how you did it?
Yes, so all these amendments were applied in the soil in end of April in 2021, and that was just one-time application because once we apply the amendments, we and when we plant the berries, this is just a perennial crop, and we don't like it's under a weed mat, and we don't remove anything right after. Like that was just one-time application, if that makes sense.
Okay, great. Yeah,
Yes.
that's I think what she was asking. And then yeah, we had another question from Gladys here. Where did you analyze for microbial communities?
So I did the DNA extraction at Hermiston at the station, and I sent out the extractants to the CQLS, Oregon State University's CQLS lab, which does the library prep and sequencing analysis for us. Yeah, and the bioinformatics analysis, again, I did it on my own, and the data analysis.
Okay, great. How were the products incorporated into the soil?
So all these amendments were applied. Like first they were spread on the soil, and then I'm having a hard time to remember, like say the name of it. But we just with a farm equipment. I'm just forgetting the name. So that was used to incorporate, like turn the amendment into the soil. But I'm just forgetting the name of it right now.
Okay, yeah. Let's see. Okay, which treatments showed the best weed control? That may not have to do with, you said you had weed mat there as well.
Yes,
So,
yes.
yeah.
Since we had weed mats, we did not have a lot of problems with weeds. If there were just a few, like one or two here and there, we'd just pull them off.
Okay. Let's see, what was your control for comparison?
So our control for comparison was the wood chip treatment because in this region, if there is a blueberry, uh, if there is a blueberry field, they will never have it without an organic input. So the grower standard here is wood chips. So that's what we used as a control.
Okay. Let's see. In our area, a large amount of municipal collected leaves are available. Do you have any comments or suggestion on the potential use of leaves as a soil amendment for blueberries? If anybody's tried that, feel free to type that into the chat.
Yeah, I'm not really sure if I have seen anybody using leaves as an organic input, but since blueberries are perennial and the leaves they will decompose quite fast, they won't stay in the soil for a very long time. So I guess in that case, for a perennial plant, maybe not, but I think we don't have any scientific data as of now that is on top of my head.
Okay, let's see. How would you recommend that we organically replace that which is lost by harvesting the blueberries year after year? So I guess just maintenance of
of the
the
carbon in
blueberry
soil.
crops. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what you mean that is lost. So if you want to clarify that, Clay, go ahead. Let's see. Anyway, in the meantime, we'll ask another question. But I guess it seems like what's being asked is how the nutrients are maintained um, year
Oh,
after year. Yeah.
so we as I said, we collected sample every spring and fall, and we looked at the nutrient status, and we also applied nutrients at the rate of, like, in the first year, since the plants were very small, we applied organic pea protein, that is a certified organic fertilizer, in these plots at the rate of 2 pounds per acre. And in the second, like in the year 2022, when the plants were a little bigger, we applied at the rate of 4 pounds per acre.
Okay. Yeah, he was talking about phosphorus and potassium.
Okay, we did not apply phosphorus and potassium because our soils, they do not need that. We just applied nitrogen source, and that was the pea protein that I'm saying.
Okay, let's see, here's another fertilizer question. I'm using a 545 fertilizer in organic blueberries. The pH is 7.2. Should I be concerned about that?
I think you should, because the recommended pH is between 4.5 to 5.5. If the pH starts to become on the basic side, as I said, the nitrogen, it will get converted into nitrate, and that is not what blueberry takes. So at that pH, whatever nitrogen you are applying will be converted to nitrates, which won't be useful for the plants. So because blueberry plants, they typically take ammonium forms of nitrogen.
Okay. Did you have a treatment that was no treatment at all?
No, no.
Okay. All right, so the control with the wood chip. Let's see. It says, also, I need a source of citric acid for organic, or what did you use in the irrigation system?
So we used sulfur prills. So we basically used um, a sulfur burner. So it actually burns sulfur and then mixes with the water and forms sulfuric acid. And then we maintained the pH of it. We actually checked the pH of it while irrigating, and if it was between 4.5 and 5.5, we were good to go. And that's what we irrigated every other day in the field.
Okay. Let's see, was there any change in pH from your treatments?
So when we started, the pH was around 6, but not 6, like 5.8 ish. But then later on, after we started doing the acidified irrigation, it came down to be around 4.8 to 5.2. That was like the ideal range. We tried to maintain that.
Okay, thanks. Let's see, could you tell us some particulars about the weed mat material, the color, thickness, and the width that you used in your organic production?
So we use the black weed mats. Um, I don't I don't remember the detail of the thickness of it. Uh, it was a plastic weed mat. But if that is necessary, I can find that out and I can surely share with you, Alice, and then you can post it.
Okay, yeah, let's remember. I'm going to write that down just because it's so easy to say on these webinars, like, oh, sure, we'll look it up later, and then we never do. So
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I remember to ask you about that. And then we post it along with the recording on the eOrganic page. So if you will have the recording up within a week, somebody asked that question as well. And I'll put it, if you just Google webinars by eOrganic, you'll find our list of webinars, and then you can go to this one, and then I'll post any additional things along with the webinar recording there. What was the pH of your irrigation water?
So as I mentioned that we used sulfur burner to irrigate our blueberries. So typically we meant, like, before turning on the irrigation, we actually checked the pH of the water. That if it was between 4.5 to 5.5, we were good to go.
Okay, and where could I get more information about the burning of the sulfur?
Sulfur burner, it's actually, I should have a picture of it. It's just that it's not in this presentation. But if you look at this slide, the one I'm projecting right now, if you see the white truck there,
Let's see. I
Extreme.
don't see that right now. I just see the question slide here.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
oh,
in
that's the
that
one.
one.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Do you
Mhm.
see the white truck just on the right? If you see a structure, that is the sulfur burner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. I'm going to look over on the side here because I see a longer chat question. Um, okay, so from Richard here, while I'm not familiar with blueberry cultivation on calcareous soils and therefore also unfamiliar with using acidified irrigation waters, I wonder how much of your results favoring grape pumice compost comes from the acidic nature of the material favoring an acid-loving microbiota suitable for blueberry soil ecology. Would you hypothesize that grape pumice compost could be as useful on acidic ultisols?
So I think that's right because the use since the grape pomace is acidic, that is true. But we composted it, and as far as I remember, the pH of that was still acidic. But since we are acidifying all the treatments with the acidified water, it will be hard to tell if the compost, if the benefits that we are seeing in compost treatments is because of the acidic nature of the compost or because of the yeah, it will be hard to tell at this point. Um, what was the second part of the question?
Okay, so would you hypothesize that grape pumice compost could be as useful on acidic ultisols?
Um, I assume it would because the main objective of adding the compost was to use it as an organic input to increase the soil carbon, which it will do it for sure. And if the soil is acidic, if the soil is like acidic ultisol, I assume I think it should work because if it is acidic, the plants would still grow, and these plants they just require acidic soil and they need high soil organic matter. So compost would add that. So I think it should work.
Okay, is cow manure safe to use as a fertilizer for blueberries for a long
Um,
time?
I I am not sure at this point, and I have not come across papers in which they have used cow manure. So I cannot give an answer. I cannot just say something right now. But I think we need to. I think this is an interesting research idea.
Okay. So Scott Lucas, who was on this grant here, he was the PI, just posted some information on in the chat box on the weed mat that was used. So thanks very much, Scott. He said the planting beds were covered with a 2.1 millimeter thick layer of woven polypropylene landscape fabric, weed barrier 20. So yeah, the details on that are in the chat box. So thanks very much for that information for those who were interested. Okay, so we have a question about whether there was green manure used prior to establishment.
No, no, we did not use green manure.
Okay. And do you have any information on using white weed barrier instead of black weed barrier in blueberries?
So based on all the trials that I have seen from this region, most of them use the black ones. I don't know if there are white ones. So I do not know about that.
Okay. And I guess, okay, so Kim is asking whether you can provide any specific information on the sulfur burner. I don't know if Scott knows about that or whether we can post that later as well.
Yes, we can because this we have been using that sulfur burner for 2 years and it works great. Um,
Okay.
I just and that was actually established before I came, so I don't know where we got it from. So I think I will have to check with Dr. Lucas about it.
Okay, yeah, and Dr. Lucas also just posted a comment that salt may be an issue with manure compost and may add too much nitrogen
Mhm.
because manure has a low
Low CN
CN
ratio. Yeah.
ratio. So yeah, thanks for that comment. So yeah, we've had a great discussion here. If anybody has any last minute questions here, I'm just going to go through and just make sure I didn't miss anything here. We had a question about cost. I'm not sure exactly. Kim, you asked whether how much something costs, but I guess maybe the sulfur burner, if that's what you're interested in. We can certainly post that afterwards on the webinar page if we can find it, if we can't get that information right now. So I just wrote that down too, so I don't forget. Let's see. Oh yeah, here's a comment that pine bark is, Kim says that she's heard that pine bark is the best wood chip if available from what she's read. Do you have any comments about that?
So the one we used were apple wood chips because because we were looking at things that were locally available. So before this field experiment, there was a greenhouse study that was done by one of the master student in our lab. Uh, she compared apple, grapes, and blueberry wood chips, and out of that, the apple ones stood out the best, and so that's what we went forward with in the field trial. Um, yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, it makes sense to use locally available materials. Okay, so Scott, thank you very much again. Just posted some very specific details here about the sulfur burner. So I'll just make sure to add that to the webinar recording. So I'm just gonna make sure I do that. So easy to just say, sure, I'll do it later and then forget. So thank you, Scott. It said it was 17K and was a small version for up to 5 acres. And it was manufactured by CTC Waterworks. So the specifics are there in the chat if you're interested. So we have one more question from Kathy here, who'd heard that alder sawdust is the best compost to add. So may depend on how available that is in your area, but I don't know if you have any comments about alder sawdust.
I do not. I mostly worked with Apple because they were all like very easily available to us.
Right.
Um, we had like growers who would just donate it to us for research work. So
Okay, that's great. All right, well, let's see. One more resource here posted by Scott, which I'll also add. Okay, yeah, it's an article from OSU Extension about compost for berry production for blueberry plants. So there's a link in your chat box to that Oregon State University Extension article. So if you don't catch that now, I'll make sure to post that along with the recording as well, which will be up within a week. So thanks everyone for all those great questions. And thank you so much, Chika, and also Scott for joining in and helping us with the resources here. And we are having one more webinar tomorrow on a completely different subject, which has to do with the compatibility of various organic insecticides with biocontrol. So if you're interested in that topic, it's not specifically for blueberry production at all, but if you're interested in that topic, you're certainly welcome to register and join us. You can find all of our archived webinars on our webinar page at Webinar by eOrganic. So thanks again, Shika, for this informative presentation. We look forward to future results on this project and best of luck in your new position at WSU.
thank you.